The soft hum of jazz drifted out from the converted warehouse, lights flickering inside like candlelight reflections on water. It wasn't their kind of place. Not typically. But Eric and Maya weren't in the mood for typical. After 6 years of marriage, they both knew when things were beginning to dull. They didn't talk about it, not directly. Instead, they let the night lead. Eric was 32, lean from regular tennis games and after-work gym sessions. His jaw carried the shadow of a beard, his pale blue shirt fitting neatly across his chest. He looked sharp, just enough to appear effortless. Maya, 27, walked a step ahead, drawing looks. Her long, dark, wavy hair brushed her bare shoulders, contrasting against the open-back black dress hugging her slim waist, shapely hips, and graceful legs. Red lace lingerie, perfectly chosen without thought of anyone seeing it, clung to her beneath. The gallery was full of people like they'd stepped off another planet. Silk scarves, oversized glasses, half-buttoned shirts, smeared paint on cheeks. Wine flowed freely. In the far corner, a woman with platinum blonde hair, full lips, and generous curves stood before a wall of canvas. She wore a white shirt, barely tucked into a short grey skirt, revealing glimpses of lace underwear when she turned. Her green eyes met Eric's across the room. She smiled, like she already knew him. Maya wasn't watching. She had wandered toward the clay sculptures on the balcony, where a young man, maybe 25, watched her with interest. Tall, muscular, with sculptor's hands, he wore a rumpled shirt stained with smears of white dust. He introduced himself, Lucas. "You don't look like the type who gets dragged here," he said with a crooked grin. "I don't," she replied, amused. "But I'm trying to be someone else tonight." He tilted his head. "I'd love to meet her." Inside, Eric had struck up conversation with the blonde, Daniela. She spoke with intensity, showing him a canvas she'd painted with her fingers, describing skin like light, breath like oil. "She's beautiful," he said of the work. "She is," Daniela replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "But you see more than most." Back on the balcony, Lucas moved closer. Maya could feel the difference. His energy, young and impulsive. He didn't pretend. He looked at her body like it was art. And for the first time in a long while, she let herself be seen. "You have amazing posture," he said softly, then leaned in. His hand grazed her back, the edge of her dress, stopping just before the lace. "Can I?" She didn't answer, didn't need to. His fingers traced the open skin, drawing shapes like whispers. Her breath caught as he brushed her hip, finding the line of her lingerie. Then his lips, warm and unsure, touched the space beneath her ear. Her knees bent slightly, like her body surrendered. Eric and Daniela had vanished behind a crimson curtain, the wine almost empty. Maya didn't notice. Lucas stepped back, a smirk playing on his lips. "Come," he said. "There's somewhere better than this." She hesitated for only a moment. The air outside was electric, still humming with the evening's promise. Maya followed Lucas down a narrow staircase at the side of the gallery, their footsteps echoing as if marking a secret escape. On the final landing, a heavy metal door groaned open to reveal the rooftop. Unguarded, scattered with canvases and forgotten wine glasses, city lights stretching in all directions. Lucas set his hands on the low brick wall and looked out, wind ruffling his shirt, bearing glimpses of his toned back. Maya stood beside him, the night air raising goosebumps on her bare arms, her dress clinging to her body, reminding her of the secret lace beneath. She felt alive in a way she had nearly forgotten. He turned to her, his eyes tracing the line of her jaw, her shoulders lingering at the subtle rise and fall of her chest. "You're different up here," Lucas murmured. "Like you left your mask downstairs." She smiled, emboldened. "Maybe I have." He stepped closer, his presence wrapping around her. "You ever pose for a sculpture?" Maya's lips parted. "No, but I might." He reached up slowly, tucking a strand of her dark hair behind her ear, his fingers brushing the delicate skin at her neck. The intimacy was so quiet it felt forbidden. Her heart hammered. His hands slid from her neck, gliding down her bare back, fingertips finding the curve where her dress dipped low. With infinite patience, he let his touch linger, caressing the lace of her bra, tracing the edge with a teasing certainty. Maya closed her eyes as Lucas pressed his lips to her shoulder, breath hot and soft. His hands, confident and gentle, rested at her waist. She felt his body against hers, the steady thrum of his heart as their forms aligned in the hush of midnight. Maya drew in a shaky breath, tilting her chin upward. Lucas leaned in, their lips meeting with a surge of need that surprised her. His kiss was hungry but careful, as if savoring something rare. Downstairs, the gallery was thinning out, guests dispersing into the night. Daniela took Eric's hand without preamble, her confidence as palpable as the heat in the room. She led him past the main floor, into a small studio draped in white sheets and dappled with moonlight. "Sit," she whispered, gesturing to a paint-stained stool. Eric obeyed a tone, a nervous laugh bubbling up. He felt exposed, even clothed. Daniela knelt between his legs, her hair spilling forward. She unbuttoned her shirt, deliberately slow, revealing a lace-trimmed ivory bra, her soft, full breasts perfectly cupped. Her skirt rolled up as she moved, showing creamy thighs and the delicate lines of white lace underwear. She looked up at Eric, mischief in her eyes. "You like to watch, don't you?" He nodded, his breath quickening. Daniela's fingers grazed the inside of his thigh, tracing circles through the fabric of his pants. She leaned in, pressing kisses along his jaw, then lower, across his collarbone. Her hand slid beneath his shirt, feeling the tense muscles of his stomach. When she lifted her head, her eyes sparkled. "Your turn," she murmured, guiding his hands to the buttons of her shirt. Together, they undressed with patient reverence, each layer revealing more of her flawless skin, her shapely waist, the gentle swell of her hips. Eric's fingers trembled as he explored her, learning her softness, the way she gasped as he kissed her shoulder, her neck, the edge of her bra. In the moonlit studio, their bodies pressed close, each movement a silent conversation of longing. Later, Maya lay with Lucas on the rooftop, both of them looking up at the stars. Their words were few, but the silences grew heavy with meaning. She caught herself wondering what Eric was doing, if he was thinking of her. And strangely, she hoped he wasn't. Lucas propped himself on one elbow. "Do you want to go back downstairs?" Maya shook her head. "Not yet." He smiled, brushing his fingers along her arm. "Me neither." Across the street, Daniela and Eric dressed in the quiet aftermath, their movements gentle, almost tender. Daniela buttoned her shirt, her hands steady, her face unreadable. She handed Eric his jacket, and for a moment they simply stood, looking at each other. "You're not like the others," she said softly. He hesitated. "Neither are you." A new understanding had settled between them, something unspoken but electric. Both couples wandered back to the gallery's main floor, unsure of what came next. Maya and Lucas entered first, faces flushed. Eric and Daniela followed a heartbeat later. Their eyes met across the room, Maya's and Eric's. And for an instant, it was as if the world spun slower, each silently confessing what had happened without words. The night was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. They had crossed a line, and none of them seemed eager to retreat. Maya excused herself to the restroom, her phone buzzing with a message from an unknown number. "You looked beautiful tonight. Enjoy the rooftop." She glanced around, a flicker of unease passing through her, but dismissed it as a joke. Back outside, Lucas found her. "You all right?" She nodded, smiling. "Just thinking." He leaned in, lips brushing her ear. "Think less. Feel more." Once more he pulled her close, their bodies molded by the wind. His hands slipped beneath her dress, fingers tracing the lace edges of her panties, while his lips found her collarbone. Maya clung to him, surrendering to sensation, the city swirling below them and the stars spinning overhead. Their secret was safe for now, but the night felt charged with the promise of more. On the other side of the gallery, Eric and Daniela exchanged numbers in hushed voices. "If you want to see more," Daniela said, "come to the roof at sunrise." Eric didn't answer, but he didn't say no. As midnight slipped toward dawn, the four found themselves drawn back together, footsteps echoing on the rooftop tiles, where everything began to blur between right and wrong. The wind picked up as night edged toward morning, tugging at the hem of Maya's dress as she stood on the rooftop. Lucas leaned against the parapet, a bottle of cheap wine in one hand, grinning at her in the orange glow of the distant city lights. Below, the gallery was almost empty, the party a faint echo. Maya felt as though she was standing on the boundary of two worlds, one safe and familiar, the other wild and charged with the unknown. She looked up as the rooftop door swung open with a metallic clang. Eric stepped out, Daniela beside him, both carrying the rumpled, just-lived-in look of people who'd crossed lines they'd drawn for themselves only hours before. For a heartbeat, all four stood still, the city's early hush, their only witness. Maya's eyes met Eric's. The truth of what had happened hovered in the cool air. Unspoken, undeniable, both tender and shocking. Lucas's brow arched in curiosity. Daniela's lips curled, a sly secret just beneath the surface. "Looks like we had the same idea," Daniela said, breaking the tension with a wink. She strode forward, unapologetic, her platinum hair catching the first hint of sunrise. Her white shirt now open at the collar, revealing the curve of her lace bra and soft, full breasts. The wind pressed the shirt against her shapely body, the edge of her skirt fluttering high over creamy thighs. She radiated confidence and a barely concealed wildness. Eric, trying to regain his composure, set his hands in his pockets. Maya forced a small smile, her pulse wild. The four of them gathered at the ledge, eyes darting from face to face, a silent challenge hanging between them. Who would speak first? Who would admit what could not be unsaid? It was Lucas who broke the spell, offering the wine bottle to Daniela with a grin. "Artist's breakfast," he joked. She took it, brushing her fingers over his. "Some things never change." Eric caught the exchange, the familiarity in their glances. "You two know each other?" Daniela shrugged, sipping the wine. "Once, in another life." Lucas's eyes glinted. "Not so long ago." Maya looked between them, the shock growing as she realized she was not the only one swept away by the night's current. There were deeper connections here, old flames not yet burned out. Eric's gaze found Maya's, a mix of apology and longing flickering there. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. Hesitant, she let him, their fingers twining, the warmth of his palm grounding her. The night had changed them. She could feel it in the way he touched her, both more careful and more desperate. She leaned into him, letting the city's wind carry her hair across his cheek, their bodies pressing together in a silent, fragile reconciliation. Daniela circled behind Lucas, her hands sliding around his waist, resting on his stomach. She pressed her lips to his neck, her movements bold, almost possessive. Lucas turned, catching her mouth in a kiss that was all hunger and unfinished business. Their bodies melded together, her skirt riding up over her hips as his hands found the curve of her back. Daniela's laughter was low and musical as Lucas spun her around, pinning her gently against the low wall, her pale thighs exposed to the dawn's light. Maya felt the world tilt. She was not jealous. She was fascinated, drawn in by the sight of old lovers rekindling, the boundaries between them all dissolving in the space of a single night. Eric's arm circled Maya, pulling her close, his mouth brushing her temple. She shivered, letting his hands roam over her back, down to the small of her waist, fingertips tracing the hidden lines of her lace lingerie. Their bodies swayed together, heat rising between them. Maya felt herself caught between memories and possibilities, her heart aching with desire and a wild, sweet kind of fear. The city below seemed impossibly far away. Suddenly, Lucas broke the rhythm, his breath ragged, looking over his shoulder at Daniela. "Why did you bring me here tonight?" Daniela's eyes flashed with challenge. "Maybe I missed you." He shook his head, stepping back. "You never miss anyone unless you want something." A thick silence settled. Maya looked at Eric, confusion mirrored in his eyes. Something was happening. Something more than four strangers lost in a night. Daniela set the wine bottle down with a clang. "You always like to make things complicated, Lucas." Lucas's jaw tensed. "Only when you gave me a reason." Maya's phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. "Beautiful view. Careful who you trust." A shock ran through her, far colder than the wind. "Is something wrong?" Eric asked, his hand still on her waist. She pocketed her phone, forcing a smile. "Just nothing." Daniela turned to Maya and Eric, suddenly serious. "You two are braver than you think, you know? Not everyone could do what you did tonight." Maya felt exposed, the words cutting through her like glass. She wasn't sure if it was meant as a compliment or a warning. Daniela's gaze softened. "Sunrise is coming. What do you want to do with what's left of the night?" Lucas grinned, but there was a tension there. "I think we've all already done it." For a moment, the rooftop became something more. A confessional, a stage, a precipice. Four beautiful strangers, each changed by a single night, tangled in ways they could not yet understand. As the sun finally crested the horizon, casting everything in gold, Maya leaned against Eric, his arms wrapped around her. Daniela rested in Lucas's lap, her head on his shoulder, both looking toward the future with something like hope, or perhaps only the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same. They sat in silence, watching the city wake, the lines between past and present, right and wrong, love and longing, all blurring in the glow of the open horizon. Morning crept across the city, turning glass towers gold and making the gallery below look almost peaceful. The rooftop was quiet, each of them caught in their own thoughts. It was as if the sunrise had painted a thin, fragile film between what had happened and what would come next. A glass divide that none of them dared shatter, at least not yet. Eric and Maya sat close, her head on his shoulder, his arm wrapped around her. Daniela and Lucas shared the opposite ledge, her bare legs draped over his, her gaze far off and mysterious. Between them all, something fragile lingered. A shared secret, the memory of new boundaries crossed, and the suspicion that not everything was as simple as it seemed. Eventually, reality crept back in. The gallery's doors banged open below, voices echoing in the courtyard. Early staff perhaps, or someone locking up after the chaos of the night before. Daniela stirred first, pulling her skirt down over her thighs, running her fingers through her wild platinum hair. She glanced at Lucas, a brief, unreadable smile crossing her lips. "I should go," she whispered, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. Lucas's hand tightened on her knee, but he said nothing. Eric looked at Maya, a question in his eyes, but she only squeezed his hand. "Let's stay," she said softly, "just a little longer." But the spell was breaking. They slipped quietly down the stairs, each descending into the world as a slightly different version of themselves. Inside, the aftermath of the party was everywhere. Empty glasses, napkins splattered with wine, the echo of music lingering in the halls. The staff looked up, surprised to see the four of them walking together. Maya could feel their eyes on her, questions unasked, stories imagined. A sudden commotion broke the uneasy calm. One of the gallery owners, a tall woman in a blue suit, burst from the main hall, panic sharp in her voice. "Has anyone seen the Venus in bronze? It's gone." The news hit the room like a spark in dry grass. The Venus in bronze was the centerpiece of the private collection. A voluptuous, life-sized sculpture that was both famous and infamous for its perfect form. The staff began to search, the mood shifting from sleepy to frantic. Maya and Eric exchanged glances, both instantly alert. Daniela and Lucas slipped off toward the side gallery, a silent communication passing between them. Maya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She'd admired the statue herself the night before. Its feminine lines, the way the sculptor had captured softness in hard metal. She tried to remember if she'd seen anything unusual. Was it possible someone had stolen it during the party? Or was it a prank? Eric touched her arm gently. "Let's not get involved." But it was too late. A member of the staff hurried over. "You were on the rooftop, weren't you? Did you see anything?" Maya shook her head. "No, we just wanted some air." She saw Lucas reappear in the hallway, his face pale, eyes darting. Daniela stood beside him, serene but tense. There was a new edge to her, something dangerous under her calm. The police arrived quickly, sealing the exits. Guests from the previous night were contacted. Maya's phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. "You were seen. Be careful who you trust." Her blood ran cold. She showed Eric the message. He frowned, his jaw tightening. "Someone's playing games." Outside, an officer reviewed security camera footage with the gallery owner. Maya and Eric watched as blurry silhouettes appeared on the small screen. Two figures moving in the shadows, one tall and broad, the other with a lithe, feminine shape. From a distance, they looked uncannily familiar. Maya's heart thudded. She squeezed Eric's hand. "Is that—" He shook his head quickly, as if denial could make it untrue. "It could be anyone." Daniela approached them, her eyes serious. "We should talk." They slipped away to a quiet alcove. Maya could feel the tension rising. The glass divide between them and everyone else shattering with every word unspoken. Daniela's tone was low and urgent. "I know who took the sculpture." Eric stared. "How?" She met his gaze, unblinking. "Let's just say I know what it's like to want to take something that doesn't belong to you." Lucas lingered nearby, his jaw tight. "Why are you telling us?" Daniela's lips curled in a slow smile. "Because I need a favor, and you need someone to keep you out of trouble." Maya felt trapped. She glanced at Eric, searching for an anchor. Suddenly, Daniela moved closer to Eric, her fingers slipping under his jacket, tugging him toward her. Her lips hovered near his ear, her hand resting just above his waistband. "Tell me the truth," she whispered, voice silk soft. Were you with me the whole night? Eric's face flushed. He glanced at Maya. Daniela's body pressed against his, the heat between them rising again, a dangerous mix of lust and threat. Daniela's breath tickled his skin. If you lie, I'll know. If you tell the truth, maybe I'll keep your secret. Lucas watched, eyes stormy, but did not intervene. Maya felt a jolt of jealousy and fear, but also a strange, forbidden thrill at the unfolding drama. She didn't know who to trust. Not Lucas, not Daniela, not even for a moment, Eric. The moment snapped as quickly as it had stretched. Daniela released Eric, stepping back. We all have secrets, she said, her voice suddenly businesslike. But only some of us have alibis. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. I'm leaving. I don't want to be part of this. Daniela's voice was cold. Suit yourself. But don't disappear, Lucas. They'll come looking for you. He shot her a withering look and strode away. Maya watched him go, torn between relief and guilt. Eric wrapped his arms around Maya from behind, whispering, Let's get out of here. But the police were already calling them in for questions. The four of them stood together, side by side, faces calm, hearts pounding, the mystery closing in like a storm. The atmosphere inside the gallery was heavy, tense with suspicion and secrets. The early light streaming through the glass roof did little to lift the mood. Instead, it sharpened every angle, made every glance seem loaded with accusation. Four of them stood together. Eric, Maya, Daniela and Lucas, while police moved quietly around, their radios hissing static, their eyes sharp. For a long time, no one said much. Daniela perched on the edge of a table, her skirt sliding up her thighs, her white shirt slightly open, revealing the lace edge of her bra and the soft curve of her breast. Lucas, tense, paced in the corner, hands jammed in his pockets, jaw set. Eric and Maya stood close, hands clasped, trying to appear calm while worry gnawed at their nerves. The police questioned each of them in turn. Maya could feel their suspicion, see it in their lingering looks. The unknown messages still weighed in her purse like stones, reminding her of the invisible web she was caught in. She wondered for a moment if she had truly crossed into some new life, or if the world would simply snap back into place and punish her for trying to escape. When it was Maya's turn, the detective was kind, but his questions cut deep. Did you see anyone near the sculpture? Was anyone acting strangely? Where were you between 3 and 4 in the morning? She answered as simply as she could. She spoke of the rooftop, of the night's haze, never mentioning the delicate lace, the gentle hands, the hunger and risk. She was careful, and still, she was not sure if he believed her. Eric was questioned next. He was steady, but his jaw worked with silent tension. The detective asked if he had left the party at any point. Eric met Maya's eyes and answered, Yes, I went with a friend. To see the studio. He did not say Daniela's name. As the sun rose higher, the investigation narrowed. The police revealed that the security camera had captured not only the vague silhouettes, but a clearer shot of someone's face, reflected in the glass case as the sculpture was moved. The image was grainy, but recognizable. Lucas. The group fell silent, the revelation hanging between them. Lucas stood frozen, color draining from his face. "It was you," Eric whispered. Lucas swallowed hard, voice rough. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Daniela's lips twisted into a complicated smile. "You always did love drama, Lucas." He looked at her, pain in his eyes. "I was angry, Daniela. I wanted to hurt you. I didn't know Maya would be there. I used her as a distraction. I'm sorry." Maya felt the words hit her like a slap. Anger, humiliation, but also a strange clarity. She remembered the way Lucas had touched her, the careful way he'd steered her through the rooftop door, away from the commotion in the gallery. She remembered feeling seen, but now wondered if she had only ever been a shadow in his plan. Daniela crossed her arms, the morning light making her hair shine silver. "So you stole my work? You wanted revenge?" Lucas shook his head, tears in his voice. "I wanted you to notice me again. I wanted to matter." The detective stepped forward, his tone gentle but firm. "Mr. Allen, where is the sculpture now?" Lucas hesitated, then answered. "In my van, down the street." As the police led Lucas away, Maya looked at Daniela, her rival, her mirror, her accomplice in a night she could barely process. Daniela met her gaze with a curious mix of sympathy and challenge. "You didn't ask for any of this," Daniela said quietly. "But you survived it. Maybe that means something." Eric slipped his arm around Maya, his touch tentative. "Are you all right?" She nodded, but her heart was still racing. The world felt thin and sharp, as if any wrong step might send her tumbling into the unknown. Outside, the city was bright and blinding. Lucas was gone. The sculpture was returned to its pedestal, the scandal quickly hidden beneath gallery routine. To everyone else, it might have been just another art world story. Ambition, jealousy, temptation. But to Maya, it was a turning point. She and Eric walked home in silence, shoes crunching on broken glass and fallen petals. The air was warm, heavy with the promise of summer. At their apartment, Maya stood by the window, watching the street below. She could feel Eric's presence behind her, steady, familiar, but changed. The night had rewritten something between them. What was broken and what was still whole. Eric placed a hand on her shoulder. "We can try again," he'd said softly. "Or we can just be honest. About what we want. About everything." Maya turned, searching his face. She saw the man she loved, and also the stranger she'd met on the rooftop. She wasn't sure who she wanted more. Maybe she could want both. She smiled. A slow, uncertain smile, the kind that meant possibility and risk. He smiled back, pulling her gently into his arms. Their lips met, tentative, then hungry, tasting the night's secrets, the morning's hope. Maya let herself fall into the kiss, her body melting against Eric's. his hands in her hair, on her back, anchoring her to the moment. Their hearts beat together, wild and strong, forgiving and wanting, neither ready to let go. After, as they sipped coffee and watched the city shimmer in the new light, Maya's phone buzzed one last time. Another message from the unknown number. "Your nights are just beginning." She laughed, a sound bright as glass breaking. Maybe it was true. She looked at Eric. "How about we paint our own story for once?" He grinned, and for a moment, the world was wide open, the horizon warm and welcoming. The city below stirred, unaware, on the windowsill. The sunlight made everything glow. For Maya, the dawn brought not regret, but a new beginning. Fragile, strange, beautiful. And somewhere out there, another message waited. Another adventure just beyond the edge of the glass.